May I have your attention, please? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is the daughter of Yisrayl Hawkins, and I want to serve you as the priestess starting very soon. It's now time to start finding your seats for Sabbath services.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is daughter of Yisrayl Hawkins, and I would like to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. I would like to present to you the sons and daughters of Yisrayl Abel now entering the sanctuary. It is a privilege and honor to present to you the daughter of Yisrayl Abel, Noah.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is daughter of Yisrayl Abel, Noah Hawkins, and I want to serve you forever as a priestess starting very soon. You may be seated. Please get your pens and paper ready to take notes. We have a very exciting program for you today. So listen carefully to our speakers. It is a privilege and an honor to turn it over to our first speaker, daughter of Yisrayl Abel, Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. My name is daughter of Yisrayl Abel, Hawkins, and the title of my speech is Building Up the Holy House of Yahweh. You may be seated. Positive law number 20. Turn to Exodus 25, verse 8 through 9. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them, according to all that I show you, after the pattern of the tabernacle, and the pattern of all its furnishing. Exactly so shall you make it. Building the holy house of Yahweh is not only the physical building, it's also the people that dwell in it. How do we build one another? Turn to Hebrews 10, verse 24. And let us consider one another how we may urge one another on toward love and righteous works. Let me give you some examples on how to encourage and show honest appreciation in Matthew 5, verse 2, where Yeshua built up the house of Yahweh by teaching. Verse 2, and he opened his mouth and taught them. Verse 8, blessed are the pure in heart. Being pure in heart means being sincere in our actions and attitude. Verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons and daughters of Yahweh. Blessed are those who make peace, for they are the true children of Yahweh. Praise Yahweh. I will now turn it over to daughter of Yisrayl Abel, Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title of my speech is Choose Life. In the beginning, Yahweh set before us 2 trees. He told us what these trees were and the blessings or curses that would come from them. Let's turn over in our books of Yahweh to Genesis 2, verses 9. And out of the ground Yahweh made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and desirable for food. The tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of righteousness and evil was in the midst also. Let's look at verses 16 and 17. And Yahweh commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree of the knowledge of righteousness and evil you must not eat, for in the day you eat of it you shall surely die. Many people in the world today have chosen to follow the beastly system and partake of the tree of righteousness and evil instead of Yahweh's way. Because of this, mankind has brought upon themselves great curses. If we look into the world today, we see nothing but hatred, wars, fighting, sicknesses, diseases, nations rising against nations, no peace, no true joy, and definitely no love for anyone. Millions of people die each day because they have no protection from Yahweh. This is all because of sin. However, very few have chosen to follow the other way, the house of Yahweh. In the house of Yahweh, we do not have to experience the curses of the world. We are blessed to have clean, healthy food, a teacher to guide us, everlasting peace, joy, and love, and protection from Yahweh. Yahweh commanded us to choose this way because it is everlasting and is perfect. Let's turn over to Deuteronomy 30, verses 19. I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you this day that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses, and because you are free agents to make your own choice between righteousness and evil, therefore choose life so that both you and your children may live. So after Yahweh has instructed us which tree to choose and has shown us what each choice would bring, he leaves it up to us to decide. Let's look at verses 19. I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you this day that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses, because you are free agents to make your own choice between righteousness and evil. Therefore choose life so that both you and your children may live. So remember, let's choose to follow Yahweh's way because it's everlasting. Choose the house of Yahweh because it is the place Yahweh chooses, the place is named, the best place to be. With this, please, it's a privilege and an honor to present to you our next speaker, daughter Yisrayl Abel, Yisrayl Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is daughter of Yisrayl Abel, Yisrayl Hawkins, and I want to serve you forever as a priestess starting very soon. I'm going to read a scripture that really inspires me. It's Isaiah 26, verse 4. Trust in Yahweh forever, for in Father Yahweh is the rock of everlasting strength. We need to remember Yahweh is in full control. Whatever occurs is in his plan. We need to put our full trust in Yahweh because he is our rock and our strength.
And now you all be seated. We turn the service over to the stars of light, the daughters of Yahweh, who sing a beautiful song. Praise Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. You may be seated. May the peace of great Father Yahweh be with each and every one of us today. Also those who are joining us over the media, different forms of media, and also those who are seeking and searching for great Father Yahweh in truth and in sincerity. May the peace of Yahweh be with them as well. Today we have a very special program for you. You remember the last time I spoke, I asked you 3 questions at the end of my speech. Do you remember what that was? Let's try it. I want to add one more question to it today. because today we want to do a program where we are comforted to know we are in the right place, in the great house of Yahweh. I asked you, does great Father Yahweh hear? And what did you answer me? You told me yes. I asked you, does great Father Yahweh see? And what did you answer me? You told me yes. I also asked you, does he understand? And what did you answer? You said yes. Today, can I ask you, please, does great Father Yahweh care? Does he care about each one of us individually? Are you sure of that? Praise Yahweh. And I said when I was leaving, I said it is a mighty power that we serve. You remember? And Yeshua said in Matthew 6:9, he said, when we pray, say, our Father who art in heaven. So is he a father? Very nice. Is he at the house of Yahweh? Do you agree? Very nice. So now you're ready then for our first speaker, Great Deaconess Yisrayl. Praise Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. This morning, I would like to start, if you could turn in your books of Yahweh to 2 Kepha chapter 3, and it's on page 962. And the title of this chapter, and also the title of my speech today, is Yahweh is not slack concerning his promise. So I'd like to ask you to write down quickly, what are the promises of Yahweh that come to your mind? Just quickly, whatever they are, write them down, whichever ones that you can think of. Pastor told us that when the stress gets heavy and the problems get rough, you can go back and read the promises. And it helps, if we keep the big picture in mind, it helps the day-to-day grind seem a little bit smaller. So if we're going to start reading in verse 2. And he says, to remember the words which were previously spoken by the holy prophets and by us the apostles, the laws of Yahweh our Savior. So it's important to keep the laws of Yahweh on our minds. And he says in verse 3, first you must understand this, that scoffers will come in the last days, walking according to their own lusts. So that's their own lust. These aren't people who are striving to practice righteousness or striving to overcome. These are scoffers who walk according to lust. And saying, where is the promise of his coming? Where's the promise of his coming? I've been here for 85 years. I haven't seen anything occur. He says that they say, for since the fathers fell asleep, all things have remained just as they were from the beginning of creation. But the truth is, now they haven't remained the same. Things are so different now that we're reaching the end. We have the diseases are the worst now. The natural disasters are the worst. We have a nuclear bomb that can wipe out the sun, and sin is reaching its peak. In verse 5, it says, but they deliberately forget this, that long ago the heavens came into existence by the plan of Yahweh, and an earth also out of water and through water, having been set together by the plan of Yahweh. So the answer to these people is, all things have been done according to Yahweh's plan, and Yahweh will bring his plan to completion. If you look to verse 9, it says, Yahweh is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering towards us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And we know that the wars that have been held back due to Yahweh's mercy towards us, wanting us to come to repentance. And it says in verse 10, but the day of Yahweh will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. And Pastor has told us that there is no reason that this is going to sneak up on us in the house of Yahweh, because we've been warned and we've been taught to prepare for this. And it says, since all these things will then be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in holy conduct and righteousness? And that's something to keep in mind. It says in verse 14, it says, be diligent to be found spotless, blameless, and at peace with Yahweh. So that's what we need to be striving for right now, is to be at peace with Yahweh. In verse 12, it says, you must look for and earnestly long for the day of Yahweh. And that's what we're doing right now. Not just us, but also all of creation is earnestly waiting for the revealing of who's going to make it, who's going to be the sons and daughters of Yahweh. It says, because of which the heavens will be dissolved in fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. Only righteousness, not the evil of the world. So some of the promises that you may have written, we have eternal life. Yahweh's promised us eternal life through the keeping of his laws. He's promised us protection through the Sabbaths and the feast days, and also a place in his family as sons and daughters through Yeshua Messiah. So sisters, I want to encourage you, when it gets heavy and times get rough, keep Yahweh's promises on your mind. It will really help us to hang in there and make it to the end. And with that, if you all stand, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. My name is Ayin Sherwood, and the title of my speech is, There is only one protected place, and that is the house of Yahweh. In Positive Law number 20, it says, build the holy house of Yahweh. The definition of build from Strong's Greek dictionary means the act of building up, one who promotes another's growth in wisdom and holiness. The place where Yahweh is regarded as present, the family of Yahweh. Yahweh's sanctuary is the center of the work of Yahweh. It's not just the building, it's also the people in it. Yahweh commands his people to build a sanctuary according to his plan from the beginning, by gathering together members who he calls out to do his work to the place which he has chosen. These same family members, his holy house, the house of Yahweh, will learn to reverence Yahweh, serve him, and glorify his name by being obedient to his every word. Yahweh gathers together as a group to one place who he is calling out according to his plan in order to prepare the great family that he is in the process of creating. We need to be involved in the work of Yahweh as much as possible and come to as much classes as we can. In Colossians 2, verse 16 through 17, on page 926. Colossians 2, verse 16 through 17, on page 926. And it says, therefore, let no man condemn you for doing these things, eating and drinking in the observance of a feast day, or of a new moon, or of the Sabbath day, which are the shadows from the things to come, for the body of Messiah. We effectively build the house of Yahweh when we allow Yahweh's administration, the overseer, the priests, the kohanas, the judges, and the head judges in his house to teach us his righteous laws. We should be building each other up and encouraging each other to do righteousness. Working with each other, not against. Teamwork. If you could turn over to Hebrews 10, verse 24 and 25, on page 949. Hebrews 10, verse 24 through 25, on page 949. And it says, and let us consider one another, how we may urge one another on to love and righteous works, not forsaking the gathering of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, so much so as we see the day approaching. The definition of exhorting from Oxford Dictionary means to strongly encourage or urge one another to do something, to caution earnestly, to cheer, advise, to encourage by empathy. The definition of consider from Oxford Dictionary means to think carefully about something. We need to think carefully about what we say about one another and the work of Yahweh. Think, is what I'm going to say lift up or put down? Our connection to Yahweh is our protection. We get Yahweh's protection by asking at Abel, studying, obeying Yahweh's laws and the one sent, and remaining zealous and overcoming. Overcoming and striving to become like Yahweh in our words and attitude, having the attitude of servitude. In conclusion, our only hope and protection is here at Yahweh's house. And with that, I would like to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. How are you doing on this wonderful day? Praise Yahweh. You may be seated. I'm going to start out in Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts and plans that I have for you, says Yahweh, thoughts of peace and not of destruction, to give you the future you hope for. In this world right now, there is so much death and violence and hatred. There's bombs dropping everywhere. Our great overseer has taught us that experience is not the best teacher, right? The house of Yahweh is the only place I have ever known. And you know what keeps me from going out there and wanting to experience the junk that is out there? Which it is junk because it's all they have to offer. Is that it's shown in the scriptures that what occurs when mankind goes their own way. This is the only place to be. Yahweh offers us protection. If we believe in Him and keep His laws. We can physically be here, but in our minds, we can be somewhere else. We cannot believe. Believing means practicing the laws to where you get to love them. Also, we have the greatest teacher in the world. Who agrees with me? Now, I know that I don't want to be away from the greatest teacher in the world. First off, he is connected to our Creator, Yahweh. And He is teaching us how to prove ourselves worthy to enter Yahweh's kingdom and how to be connected to Yahweh. Okay. Our overseer told us, even if we don't understand, still read the book of Yahweh. Eventually, you will understand. He also said to embrace your book of Yahweh, because your book of Yahweh is alive. We don't want to be outside by ourselves, right? When we leave, we are by ourselves. We have no one. We think we take the name of Yahweh with us when we leave. No, we don't. We think Yahweh can hear our prayers when we leave. He doesn't. In Deuteronomy 6:25, it says, and it will be our righteousness if we observe and do all the laws before Yahweh our Father which He has commanded us. If I leave, am I doing what Yahweh says? Do we think Yahweh protects us if we leave? No, He doesn't. If we leave, our lamps will be empty. It's not going to be easy, like Yeshua said. He had to take every thought into subjection. It's going to take work and practice. Put your mind on Yahweh's work, and trust me, you will forget about all your problems. The end is so near. It's right at the door. It's almost through the door. Don't waste your time on foolish things of the world. Is it really worth your salvation and your life? If it's not forever, we don't want it. In Isaiah, if you could turn over to Isaiah with me, 48. Verse 17. This is what Yahweh, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, says. I am Yahweh, your Father, who teaches you to succeed, who leads you by the way so you should go. Say it with me. I am Yahweh, your Father, who teaches you to succeed. If Yahweh didn't think we could succeed, do you think we would be here? No. We're almost there, sisters. Just a little more to go. Keep pushing. With this, I'll turn over to the next teacher.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title of my speech today is Yahweh's House is It. There's nothing else. And I'm going to read some articles, and I want you to put yourself in the victim's shoes. So I pulled these articles from just this week. The first one is U.S. safety regulators have closed an investigation into the Jeep Grand Cherokee's automatic braking system without seeking a recall. You might think, why is she saying this? What does this have to do with anything we're talking about? When you are out in the world and companies make stuff and then they make mistakes, if they can get away with it, this is something serious too, because people were getting smashed, the vehicles was getting smashed in the back, in the middle of the road. And they're not recalling the vehicles or giving you your money back. So that's one thing. Now, if you want to be a part of the justice system and try to put an end to this, well, listen to this. U.S. Congress votes to override Obama's veto on 9/11 victims bill. They passed it into law. So this victims bill was for the families of those who were killed in the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks to sue Saudi Arabia for any part they could have had in it. But when you think about that, have they changed government officials since then? I mean, it's like, this is 15 years ago, and you want to sue the people for this. Where is the compassion for those people? Where's the compassion for those who have lost families over in that country because we came over there and killed people there? There's no compassion in the world today. And even the children. Listen to this. Man admits to killing 19 people after having an argument with his parents over money. He killed 19 people because he and his parents couldn't agree on a money situation. 18 of them were minors. Yes, this was in China, so if you want to move out of the United States, and get a better place to live, no. There is no other place to live except right here at Yahweh's house. So you can see, do we have these problems here? Do we? No, we don't have these problems here at Yahweh's house. Now, why is that? It's because we have Yahweh's laws and we have a teacher. So, house of Yahweh, be thankful for the life that you have been given. The tests, the purpose, the potential you have is greater than anything out there. Some people, a lot of people, thousands, millions of people don't have what you have. And I want you to know that when you're down, when you're out, you're going through those tests and you're going through those trials. They're tough. I know. I've been through them myself. But when you're going through these things and you still get up in the morning, you still go to work, you still smile, you still say shalom, you still carry on an uplifting conversation with someone else, you are inspiration to me. That even though I'm going through tests, I can do the same thing. I can get up with a smile on my face and say, I can do this. I can get through all of my tough times, no matter how hard it is, because I am in Yahweh's house. And you remind me that it's better here than it is out there. And remember, I'm not the only one. There's thousands of people who see that. When you go out into the world to shop, to work, whatever your situation is, people see it. And they're like, wow, what makes them so different? They seem so much more alive, I've heard. So remember that. I know sometimes when we're going through things, it's like, I do not feel alive right now. But that's what other people see when you can keep on pushing. Yahweh sees that. He sees the energy. He sees the desire in you, and He'll give you strength if you just keep pushing. And when you think about all the things that are going on in the world today, I want you to think of Ecclesiastes 5:18 and 19. It's on page 521 if you want to read along. It says, "Then I reached this conclusion. It is fitting and proper for one to eat, to drink, and to enjoy the fruits of all one's labor which he has undertaken under the sun all the days of his life which Yahweh gives him. This is his reward." So when you work and you reap the benefits of your labor, that is your reward. Nothing, not your phone, not your house, not your car, not your clothes, not your shoes, not your bag, whatever else you can think of. No, that's not your reward. Furthermore, every man whom Yahweh gives riches and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, I mean, think about it, the world, they have all these things, but do they enjoy their life? No, because they're missing Yahweh. When Yahweh gives him all these possessions and enables him to accept his circumstances, accept the tests, accept the trials, accept the things that you're going through, and to be joyful in your work, this is a gift from Yahweh. So in conclusion, remember Philippians 1:6, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a righteous work in you will continue to bring it to perfection. With that, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. So today the title of my speech is Get to Know Yahweh. And I want to talk about how the more you get involved in Yahweh's work, the more you're going to learn to love it. The more you're going to want to stay and immerse yourself in the knowledge Yahweh has poured out in these last days and not want to do anything else. Which is unity, of course, what we've been taught here in the house of Yahweh. So Yahweh, he's so awesome. He has his whole plan laid out. He has it in the book of Yahweh, an actual written contract. He leaves no doubt of what he created mankind for and what he created the earth for and why we're here in his house in these last days. And one amazing thing, if you can just keep this in your mind always, is the scripture in Isaiah 34:16 that Pastor always reads to us, which says, "Search out the book of Yahweh," and read it on page, if you can turn there, 551. And it says, "Search out the book of Yahweh and read. Not one of these will be neglected. Not one of them will fail. For it is written, Yahweh is their shepherd, they shall not want. For his mouth has commanded it, and his spirit has gathered them." And you can see that same spirit that's talked about in Zechariah 5:9 that came and overshadowed the two women who built the house, the two witnesses who built the house of Yahweh in the last days. So in Genesis 1:26, we see that Yahweh's plan was to create mankind, to build a family who would bring righteousness just like he is, who he can trust to teach righteousness to the new heaven and the new earth that he's going to establish. And you can see that mankind went his own way, and brought all these curses upon themselves. But Yahweh doesn't leave mankind suffering. Like in the King James Version and all other renditions, it shows the Creator, God to be this vengeful, angry being, but he's not. Yahweh is a loving Creator that actually warned mankind thousands of years in advance what to do and what not to do, and sent prophet after prophet, throughout the years in mankind that they rejected. But in these last days, he sent his last day's work, because he wants to help mankind. He wants to see that goal fulfilled in Genesis 1:26. So how did that take place? Well, we have Micaiah 4:1-3 that talks about Yahweh's house being established here in the last days, where all people come and eventually flow to it. But that was for the time period spoken of in Matthew 24:33-34, where Yeshua said that last generation. And going back to Isaiah 34:16, knowing that not one of these things will be neglected, you can be for sure that Yahweh's house, is established in the last days, and this is the place to be, not anywhere else. Nowhere else is Yahweh's name, Yahweh's laws, or Yahweh's last day's witness at. This is only true in one place. Okay, so if you turn over to Zechariah 5:9, what is this last day's witness teaching to us? And this is one of the scriptures that the great Khan spoke about last Sabbath. And it says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, 2 women, the last 2 heirs of the house of Yahweh, sent with commandment. And the Spirit of Yahweh came to overspread them, and they were covered with the covering of saints. They exalted, magnified, and extolled the ephah, the standard of perfection sent by Yahweh's laws, separating the way of the world from the way of Yahweh." And you can see there, separating the way of the world from the way of Yahweh is what Yisrayl Hawkins is doing here in the last days in the whole entire house of Yahweh. He's showing the sin that's brought the curses and the end result of mankind's way, and Yahweh's righteousness and his laws, and what Yahweh, wants to accomplish. He shows us, the agency that's brought forth all this teaching, because if y'all can recall when Pastor said this about 2 weeks ago, he said, you have to, the house of Yahweh in these last days is fighting all the deception that's ever been taught since the time of Cain and still going now through the book of Yahweh, through revealing the secrets that Yahweh has in here. All the deception, like taking away the Sabbath, taking away the name, and Yahweh allowed the book of Yahweh to be taken away. That's all being restored back here in the last days. And there's no doubt that Yahweh is going to accomplish his plan. And you can see that Yeshua upheld this too, and he knew. Because in Yochanan 10:10, there's one scripture that always comes to mind when we think about separating the way of the world from the way of Yahweh. "The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and to destroy." There you can see the Vatican, their teachings from the time of Cain until now. "I have come that they might have life, and they might have it more abundantly." And the only way that life can come and be more abundantly is when Yahweh completes this plan. Satan can't, remember what he said in Matthew, if Satan can only destroy heaven and earth, then, not one of these will fail. But Satan won't. We already know Yahweh's plan in Genesis 1:26 is to build his family, to build a righteous family that would uphold his laws forever and teach righteousness. And we know that this is the place to be. There's no other place that offers salvation. The only thing that's being taught out there is the religions, the 4,200, they're only teaching God worship. There's no life offered out there. Only Yahweh's house and his inspired work is where we should want to be. And the more you study, the more you get involved with and active in this last day's work and looking forward to keeping the appointments and the feasts, the more you'll never want to leave. You'll want to help in accomplishing this plan. And with this, if you all stand, I'm going to turn over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You all may be seated. The title of my speech today is Why Not Forever? In preparation for this speech, I sought the best. Our pastor, Yisrayl Hawkins, through the Yisrael Says program. I came across this story where pastor shared how he felt. He said he felt grief in his heart because people were begging the doctors for longer lives, lives not filled with diseases. Someone asked the question, how long do you think we should live? Or how long would you like to live? Most said at least 100 years, and one of them responded 150. But then pastor said he thought, well, why not forever? Why not forever? Have you ever asked anyone if they'd like to live forever? If you have, you'd probably notice the uncomfortable facial expression, the slight adjustment in their posture, and a response that goes something like this. Yeah, but... See, that's what I like to call the today problem. I plan to offer a solution to the today problem. But first, I'd like to share a little story that most of you may be familiar with. There was a certain man that carried this today problem. TP is what I'll call it. So this certain man carrying TP approached Yeshua concerning living forever. Now, this story is found in multiple places, but we'll be reading from Luke chapter 18, verses 18 to 21, as well as Yochanan Mark chapter 10, verses 21 to 22. Now, I want you to take note that this man knew exactly where to go and who to ask. Yahweh, our Heavenly Father, has a place that He has chosen, His house, established in these last days for His people, where the plan that allows abundant living forever can be found. It's none other than the house of Yahweh. That's exactly where this man went. Now in Luke chapter 18, verses 18 to 21, now a certain ruler asked him, saying, righteous teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Yeshua said to him, why call me righteous? There's only one who is the standard of perfect righteousness, and that is Yahweh only. You know the laws of Yahweh. Do not commit adultery, do not commit murder, do not steal, do not bear false testimony, honor your father and your mother. Then he said, and I'm going to move on to Yochanan Mark here, 10:21. It says, then Yeshua, looking straight at him, loved him and said to him, one thing is lacking in you. Go your way, sell whatever you have, and give your third tithe for the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and you will be walking in Yahweh's ways and following me. But he was saddened by that saying, and went away grieved, for he had great possessions. Now, I mentioned that this man had TP. You know, the today problem. Well, what exactly is that? TP is when you can't see past today. He had a block in his mind that looked like this. May I have my first slide, please? TP, the today problem, is not seeing beyond the line. If you can't see beyond today, how is it possible to get to forever? Why not forever? Why can't this certain man get to forever? Why was he saddened? Why was this line, this separation between today and forever present? It's clear he had the components of forever. He came to the house of Yahweh. Yeshua was sent of Yahweh. He came to Yeshua and was asking him, how can I get eternal life? He came to Yeshua and he was keeping the laws of Yahweh. How long do you want to live? 150? No. We want forever. Yeshua, what must we do to have eternal life? You see that line between today? May I have my slide once more, please? The first slide. You see that line that was between today and forever? Yeshua is saying right now, remove that line. And it will look like this. May I have my second slide, please? My last slide. Today is forever. Live your life today like you live it forever. Is your attitude today the way you'd want it to be forever? If it's not, change it. Remove the line. Live your life today like you live it forever. Go your way. Take what you have and walk in Yahweh's ways. You'll have treasure in heaven forever. Yeshua said, follow me and live forever today. Make your today forever. At this time, would you all please stand? I would like to welcome the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. You may be seated. The title of my speech is Faith. Okay, and I took that acronym because I love acronyms and help me remember things. And I put it to stand for me, says, first, always, I trust Him. I shared with you a few weeks ago that back last year, a few weeks before Feast of Tabernacles, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I was counseled, of course, by my doctors to do this and do that, and we can give you medication for your pain, and then, of course, you're going to have pain over here, so we'll give you pain medication for that. And so I sat before my doctor when she called me in, and she had a saddened look on her face, and she looked at me and she said, you have a brain tumor. Now, she knows I'm in the house of Yahweh. So her only response after that, or instructions after that, she said, call the house, call your pastor. And when I walked out of there, who was the first person you think I called? I called Abel. And I was, turned over to pastor. Pastor gave me instructions. He said, you need to call Great Head Judge Sarah Menorah. Then you need to get Great Kohana Ria Shekinah. And, he gave me instructions, right? And do you think I asked why? Do you think, why do I need to call them? I did as I was told, okay, by our great pastor and overseer. 9 months later, a few weeks before Feast of Pentecost. I'm driving to Abel, and I had an MRI that morning, and at 5:12 p.m., my doctor calls me. And she says, "Are you available to talk?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And she says, "I have some great news." She didn't say for me. She said for your pastor. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, tell me, I'll forward the information." She says, we ran the MRI twice, and there's nothing there. She said, "There's scarring. We can see there was something there, but your 7-millimeter tumor is gone." Praise Yahweh. I asked her 3 times, "Are you sure?" Because I didn't have any doubts in what Father Yahweh could do. Okay? No doubts. I just wanted to make sure that when I gave Pastor the message, I didn't have to call back a week later. "Oh, no, sorry, it was not that way." Okay? So, I looked up 2 definitions because I said the title of my speech was faith. When I was getting ready to hang up with my doctor, she says, "The neurologist is going to call you next week to give you the news I just gave you." And she says, I just need to make a comment that he said to me. He said, "How do I go to a conference of oncologists and explain this?" And she says, "You don't. You can't." Because see, she says, "Irma, you have one of the most beautiful faiths I've ever seen." And this is what I want to share with you, sisters. I looked up the word faith, and it says complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Okay? Because see, she self the world, my doctor self the world, and she said that she could see my faith. I said, I have complete trust in Yahweh. And I looked up the word trust. It says firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. So, my question is, do I show trust in Yahweh? Always? Because I say I trust in Yahweh. I say Yahweh is in full control. Well, is that true always? Or just sometimes? Because, great sisters, here is the thing. We must show that we believe, because we were just given the definition of believe, right? Standing firm in what we are instructed to do. Following those who rule over us. Okay, and I wanted to share a scripture that I was studying this week that helped me through a few tests. Pastor calls them petty trials. And there's a reason he calls them that, because at the end, is it going to matter, right? So I want you to turn to Hebrews 13:7. It's on page 952. And it says, it's Hebrews 13:17, "Obey those who have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they who must give account. Do your part, that they may do so with joy, and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you." In other words, when my authorities, when my supervisors, when my counselors are counseling me, and I do not follow instruction, is it unprofitable for them? No, right? It's unprofitable for me. And if I am saying that I trust in Yahweh, and that my full confidence and faith is in him, then I must follow in the counsel of those who rule over me. Great sisters, I want to close with one. I had a department chair person, and she would start every meeting with a quote. She says, "You will only see the obstacles when you take your eyes off the goal." And back then it made sense. It makes sense today as well. As I stand here, as we all are sitting here with one goal, which is to make it into the kingdom, correct? Praise Yahweh. So if we keep our eyes on the goal and we follow the instructions of those who rule over us, okay, then these tests are not obstacles. These tests are just giving us the opportunity to show our faith and our trust in Yahweh. And with that, if you will all please stand. I hand it over to the next teacher.
You may be sitting. Shalom, great daughters of Yahweh. My presentation today is entitled, My Joy. From the time began, Yahweh has always chosen a man, and in our case, it is Yisrayl Hawkins, a man who will lead his people in his ways, a man who is Yahweh's voice in these last days. Like Moshe or Abraham, the book is filled with such men. And since the book of Yahweh has no closing page, and it is still being written to this day, Yahweh has called a body of believers to become ones he can write positively about. For thousands of years, others would read about his servants of choice, in whom he found honor, servants who heard his voice, Yisrayl Hawkins. The word honor means to show preference, to prefer above others, to exalt, to consider excellent, to magnify, and to hold highly. Yeshua refers to the house of Yahweh as his joy. And that's what I want to share with you today. May I have my first slide, please? Okay. Now, Yeshua wrote, me joyous. I was right down by the South office, and I saw it looked like the word joy. So I took a picture and I went home and I looked at it and it said, me joyous. And so I went to Yahweh and I said, Yahweh, he initiated a conversation here. I want to know what his joy is. So can you please ask him to write to Ashariah what his joy is? So that would be that slide, my joy. So I went back to Yahweh. I said, Yahweh, this is not the answer I was wanting. I want to know what his joy is. I asked, what are you joyous about? He said, my joy. So he did write H-O-Y-J-O-Y. And I was satisfied with that. That was on, so the first time was 5/22. When he wrote my joy, it was 6:15. I'm giving you dates. And then when he wrote H-O-Y-J-O-Y, it was 7:15. And so I thought that was the end of the conversation. But on 7:16, he wrote, do you have the slide? He wrote, you, house of Yahweh, and it was a U, H-O-Y, R, lowercase, M-Y, uppercase, my, J-O-Y. The word joy means as a person, someone being someone's joy, someone you rejoice over, find delight in, one you are joyful about, one you can boast about, one who brings cheerfulness to you. Yeshua wrote this in a period when the trials and tests were at a certain elevation, and I'm sure you remember it. It was a period when everyone was seemingly losing their minds. The tests were very severe, and he started writing. So he's saying, I'm watching you, and I see the choices that you are making under severe pressure. But it did not end there. On 7/27, I was sitting at my window, and that's why I had to do the drawing here, and I saw the word you. And it was there for a while, and I'm looking at it, and I'm wondering, what is that word? So eventually I took a picture, and when I looked at the time, it was 8:04, and the phrase was, in the sense of successful. So I sat there and I'm thinking, well, successful in what? And I started thinking about all the things that Yeshua was writing about how Yahweh being his joy. And I said to myself, oh my word, we proved ourselves in this test. But I went back and looked again at the word 8:04, and it says, it is akin to 8:33, and it means to be straight, to be level, right, joyful, to go forward, be honest, prosper, bless, lead, go, guide, joyful leaders, to relieve others, to relieve. On 7/27, I looked a little bit to the right, to my right, which will be the southeast, and I saw, yes, because I was thinking, I said, Yahweh, did we make it? And I saw yes, okay? YL. He gave his signature on that. And at the time when I saw it, it was 8:37. And it says, go back to 8:33. So let me repeat what it says. To be straight, to be level, right, joyful, to go forward, be honest, prosper, bless, lead, go, guide, joyful, leaders, relieve. So what are they saying? They are joyful that we are at the point where we can get more pressure. Remember? Yeah, it's coming. The showdown. We prove that we can take the pressure and make righteous choices. So we have proven ourselves to them. And they were also saying that Yisrayl Hawkins has done a fabulous job. So repeat after me. I will be a fool to leave my father after he has told me I have successfully proven myself to him. I turn it over to the next teacher.
Shalom, great family of Yahweh. You may be seated. The title of my speech today is Two Groups. In Revelation 3, verse 10, it says, because you have kept the word of my patience, I will also keep you from the hour of temptation, which will come upon all the world to test those who dwell upon the earth. So we're going to talk about two groups of people, a group that is going to have Yahweh's protection and a group that's going to face the wrath of Satan. And we all know that Yahweh's not a wrathful being, but Satan, she is very wrathful, and she's going to become even more angry. And in Revelation 13:10 it says, he who is for captivity will go into captivity. He who is for the sword must be killed with the sword. Herein is the patience and the faith of the saints tested. In the book of Yisrayl, the 14th book of Yisrael, part 1, chapter 3. I recommend that everyone go home and read this. But in pages 36 to 39, it's that story where Pastor was telling us that loving sister threw the salt on the snow and that Hebrew word Kodaya appeared. And he started explaining what the Hebrew letters in that word meant. And when he read that first letter, it said, even if a sharpened sword is laid on one's throat, one must not despair of praying for divine mercy. And he went on to explain in that sermon how Yahweh is putting the finishing touches on his people, and he's getting us to the point where if we were to face the stake, we would do it knowing that it's Yahweh's will. And he also gave some other examples that if a gun was held to our head, don't beg for mercy. He said he wouldn't beg for mercy. Before he said this, I probably would have begged for mercy, but he's telling us, don't beg for mercy. Just say, Yahweh, your will be done. I'll see you in heaven. So, this can be a fearful subject, but it does not have to be a fearful subject for the house of Yahweh, because the house of Yahweh is the protected place. In the same sermon, he also says that he doesn't think we'll have to go through this. So that was a relief. He doesn't think we'll have to go through this because he thinks we're beyond this. And he also said that he's going to the courts of heaven on our behalf daily. Isn't that awesome to think about? Our overseer? We really need to pray for our overseer because I've noticed he's lost a lot of weight, so he's probably fasting for us a lot, so we need to do the same for him and, be that support system for him. So there are two groups, one that will face the wrath of Satan and one that will have Yahweh's protection. Now, the mark of the beast, there's different printings of the mark of the beast, but in my particular book, Pastor, he gets into the group that's going to face the wrath of Satan, and he asks, why is one group suffering persecution while one has Yahweh's protection? And in the first chapter, he tells us why this second group faces Satan's wrath, and it's because they're stealing from Yahweh by not paying tithes. May I have my first slide, please? Also, in chapter 6 of the same book, which I find very ironic, it's chapter 6, page 66. So not all of our books will be on page 66, but mine was, so 666. I didn't think that was a coincidence. He gives us a list. He tells us more of some things that this group is doing. And the first one is breaking Yahweh's Sabbaths. The second one is not keeping Yahweh's appointed feasts. The third one is gossiping. The fourth one is slothfulness. And number 5 is stealing from Yahweh. So what can we do to build the house of Yahweh and not face this wrath of Satan? Well, obviously it would be to do the opposite of what's on this list, right? Because this is the group of the protected place. And the reason why we have protection is because we have that testimony of Yeshua, and we carry out Yeshua's commission, which is to take Yahweh's message to all the world by preaching and publishing it. May I have my second slide, please? Okay, so if we do these things, the first one's keeping the Sabbaths. And you all have this one on point because I'm seeing you sitting in front of me, right? The second one is to attend Yahweh's appointed feasts. Y'all will be back tomorrow, right? You're coming back tomorrow? Got that one down. The third one is spread Yahweh's message. So instead of spreading people's business, we can spread Yahweh's message instead. And the fourth one is to do the work of Yahweh, the opposite of slothfulness, do the work of Yahweh. And the fifth one is pay Yahweh his tithes. Okay, so I know that everyone sitting here has all of that down pat. We have nothing to worry about. And we don't have anything to fear if we do these things. And I want to call back your remembrance to a sermon that the great Khan Yehuda gave way back in the 90s titled Yisrael Will Live. If you haven't heard this sermon, please listen to it. If you heard it, pull it out, listen to it again. Because we're going into a time period, it could be fearful for the world, but it doesn't have to be fearful for us, because we have to trust and believe that Yahweh is going to overshadow and protect his house. And in this sermon, he goes into Isaiah 43, verse 3, and it says, "For I am Yahweh your Father, the Holy One of your Savior. I gave Egypt for your ransom and Ethiopia and Seba for your price, because you were precious in my sight. You've been honorable, and I have loved you, so I will give men for you and people for your life." And I know I did not read that nearly as great as Khan Yehuda did. I mean, it still imprints my mind. It was a long time ago. But if you look at that word ransom, it's word number 3724, and it means to cover, a redemption price. And it comes from 3722. This is from the Strong's Hebrew Dictionary. And it means to expiate, cancel, make atonement, forgive, be merciful, purge away, reconcile, and pardon. And we all know that our overseer's sins have already been blotted out, and he's guaranteed that position in the kingdom, right? And so if we do these things, we'll be guaranteed it too, because we are his seed. So Yahweh offers his house. Yahweh is not a vengeful being. He's not wrathful. But Satan, like I said before, she is wrathful. And in Lamentation 3, verse 21 to 23, it says, "Yet one thing I keep in mind, which will give me hope, because of Yahweh's great mercies we are not consumed, and his compassions do not fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." So notice it says Yahweh's mercies and compassions are new every morning. So ours, if we start practicing that towards each other, ours will be new towards each other every morning as well. And for my closing scripture, on page 712, it's Zephaniah 2, verse 3, it says, "Seek Yahweh, all you meek of the earth, who have kept his laws. Seek righteousness, seek humility. It may be that you will be hidden and protected on the day of Yahweh's judgment." So do you think that we'll be protected, Great House of Yahweh? Just keep in mind, it's minutes to midnight, and I'm not talking about the doomsday clock. I'm talking about when the bridegroom comes to get us. It's minutes to midnight. So let's just make sure that we're doing everything we can to be in the group that faces Yahweh's protection. And if you'll all please stand, I'd like to turn it over to our next speaker.
You may be seated, great saints of Yahweh. Showing honor to him whom Yahweh has honored. That's the title of my speech today. Deuteronomy 29:29 on page 172 says, "The secret things belong to Yahweh our Father, but the things revealed to us, the every word that proceeds from Yahweh's mouth, belongs to us and to our children forever, so that we may perform and do all the words of this law." That is a gift from Yahweh that he has given us, the laws of Yahweh. And that's on page 172. And Positive Law 172 is that you must listen to and obey the overseer of the house of Yahweh. Which brings me to the second gift that Yahweh has given us. And that's in Numbers chapter 18, verse 6, on page 126. This is Yahweh speaking, myself have chosen you, Israel, the Levite from among the children of Israel, as a gift to you, given by Yahweh to do the work of the tent of meeting. Buffalo Bill Hawkins, that's what he was given the name when he was born, our overseer. That's number 1394 in Gematria, and it means gift. Also, I'm going to go into his date of birth, August 28, 1994. When you write that out in the Gematria, it's number 3549. 3549 in the Hebrew Greek means priest. He was born Buffalo Bill Hakahan, hidden in order to restore the house of Yahweh. And also in Gematria, Yahweh says, I have made him Hakahan, priest, at his birth. And it means officiating as a priest. In the Greek, 3549 means to legislate, to be sanctioned. And the American Standard Dictionary, sanction means to give official authorization or approval, a law or a decree. Now let's make sure we can prove this scripturally, that he does have the authorization that was given to him, that was sanctioned to him. In Zechariah 3 verse 8, the ending says, "For behold, I will bring forth my servant the branch." He's telling Yeshua that. When we go right down to Zechariah 6 verse 12 on the opposite page, he's saying to Yeshua, this is what Yahweh of hosts says, "Behold this man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh." So he's telling Yeshua to do this. Well, what does Yeshua do at that point? he tells us in Revelation 22:16, he's always in one accord with Yahweh. Yeshua is always in one accord. So Yeshua says in Revelation 22:16, I, Yeshua, have sent my Malak to testify to you these things in the congregations of the house of Yahweh. So he is saying, okay, Israel, I'm sending you to the people, and you're going to teach them. You're going to officiate as a priest. The word also means, 35:49, to ordain by law, a lawgiver, one who parcels out or gives out the law. This is talking about our overseer, Yisrayl Abel Hawkins, a point of a service of a ministry of the word of Yahweh. And in the Strong's, it took us to Acts 20, verse 28. And that's on page 863. Therefore, be on guard for yourselves and the whole flock over which Holy Spirit has made you overseer, to feed the called out ones of Yahweh, which Yeshua has purchased with his blood. So he's telling us Israel is going to feed us. Has he not fed us everything that we need to come to perfection? He is as Yeshua, and Yeshua is as Yahweh, the reflection of perfection. And when we see that in our overseer, we can see how important it is to be obedient to everything he says. And also in Malachi 2, 6 and 7, we could turn there on page 725, Malachi 2, 6 and 7. Truthful teaching of the law is in Israel's mouth. Iniquity is not found on his lips. He walks with me in peace and equity, uprightness, and turns many away from iniquity. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of Yahweh of hosts. We just saw where Yeshua said, I, Yeshua, have sent my Malak to testify to you these things. So he is that messenger here that keeps the knowledge on his lips. And when you see in Zechariah 6, verse 13, he says, he will be a priest on his throne, and talking about Yeshua and Israel, he says, he will be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between them both. That council of peace is Yahweh's laws. And what's really interesting is this is Zechariah 6:1-3. So Yahweh's laws of peace, which the overseer brings to us and to this whole world, they aren't accepting it, but Yahweh has given it to us. So he fulfills everything that is shown in the gematria about his date of birth and his name. Now there's another number that I looked up, and that's 3035, and you might want to ask, well, where does that come from? This is the last 4 digits of the overseer's Social Security number. So we know that he never needs Social Security because his full confidence and security is in Father Yahweh. And the world surely proved that, because the Social Security system did not even start until the year after the overseer was born, to prove that Yahweh knew he would be his security. So number 3035 means praised, from 3034, and from 3027. It means to use the hands to revere or worship with extended hands. Now we know that's Daniel 12, verse 7, where he'll lift his right hand and his left hand toward Yahweh and bow by him who lives forever, about the times, and the dividing of times. It means to give thanks. And number 3027 means an open hand, indicating power. It means to fill someone's hand, may be a technical term for installing him in office, sanctifying a minister in the priest's office. So you see, Yahweh is honoring, and that's what we need to always do, is showing honor to him whom Yahweh has honored. And it also means, from the Greek 3037, a stone. Now we know that's Revelation 2:17, that stone of acquittal. Also in the definition, it means adornment of the foundation of the wall of the spiritual and heavenly Jerusalem. And what is that foundation that's spoken of here? Let's go to 2 Timothy 2:19. 2 Timothy 2:19 says, "The foundation of Yahweh is sure, having this seal, those who reverence Yahweh depart from iniquity." So that foundation is coming out of this world, holding fast to Yahweh, and it also goes to Ephesians 2 verse 20, which is on page 917. "And are built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Yeshua Messiah himself being the chief cornerstone." And that's always what the overseer has always taught us to build upon, is the laws and the prophets, and Yeshua, the testimony of Yeshua. The mark of the beast, which we're all reading these days, every prep day we read our chapter of the mark of the beast. In the introduction on the second mark of the beast, the mark of the beast, volume 2, 5a, there's the bottom paragraph, the overseer writes. Now remember, this was 30 years ago. What were we doing 30 years ago? What was he doing even before the 30 years ago? His life was always to build up the holy house of Yahweh. These books do not proclaim new prophecies, nor do these books interpret scriptures. These books point out scriptural facts, prophetic events, and the historical past that's leading you to the prophetic present. Isn't that amazing? That is like so amazing to me that you won't hear that from anyone out in the world. Does not our overseer adorn us every Sabbath with the laws of Yahweh? He is putting that crown not on our head, but in our head, the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding of the laws and the prophets. And yes, that is a great adornment that he is giving us if we will take it unto ourselves. At this time, I would like to refer to the chart over here. You'll see we're talking about the last generation. In 1934, in the Strong's, it means to exist, to become, to behold, to seek, and to worship Yahweh. That was when our overseer was born, and that the last generation started. He came into existence, and he was beheld by Yeshua. He seeks the word of Yahweh, just like the kingdom of Yahweh, Matthew 6:33, to worship Yahweh in truth and faithfulness. Now, if you take 1934 and you take 1 plus 9 is 10, and 3 plus 4 is 7, you come to Revelation 10:7. Revelation 10:7. "But in the days of the voice of the seventh Malak, when he will begin to sound, the great secret of Yahweh will be revealed, as he declared to his servants the prophets." It says in our book, first to finish, but according to the 11th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 1, verse 86, it says, "When he begins to sound, the great secret of Yahweh would be finished. That is, they'll be revealed, as he declared to his servants the prophets." So this tells you, you've got to know what the prophets said. You've got to. We've got to, because we are being a testimony of the work that the overseer is doing in these last days, proving that he fulfilled every prophecy written about him, just as the apostles wrote down every prophecy written that Yeshua fulfilled. So then we go back to the paper over here. Revelation 10:7, if you take 10 plus 7 is 17, and you saw that within that definition for the Social Security number that he would be given, the great overseer would be given the stone of acquittal, Revelation 2:17. Now, does anyone doubt that Yahweh truly is working with this anointed one in these last days? No, we don't doubt that one bit. And do we support and build him up just as Yahweh has honored and built him up? We are the most honored people to be under the one that Yahweh has truly honored in these last days. And may we always, sisters, bring honor and glory due to the one that Yahweh has brought honor and glory to. Praise Yahweh. And now at this time, it's my honor to bring forth another who always honors Yahweh in all her actions.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Do you know what I believe? I truly believe the House of Yahweh members are by far the wisest people in the entire world. Do you believe that? Yes, you do. Yahweh told us he will make the simple one wise. So we're going to put that statement to the test today. No cheating, it is very easy questions. What event begins this coming Day of Atonement? Any answers? The what? Yeah, the seventh year, yes. The year of rest, the sabbatical year. Number 2, what do you do during the 7th year? I'm getting multiple answers. What? Let the land rest, yes. Also, we do one more thing. I'll give you a hint. Law number 16. Gather for the reading of the law every 7th year. We also do that this coming year. So we are going to get a head start today. And I would like to focus on one law. If you turn in your book of Yahweh to page 1b, it is right after Revelations chapter 22. I want you to notice law number 1. It states, believe in Yahweh as the only source of power in the universe. But what does it mean to believe? Look at prohibitive law number 1 on page 5b, a few pages over. Do not trust in any power but Yahweh. To believe is to trust. So in essence, we must believe or trust in Yahweh only as the only source of power in the universe. Do we agree with this statement? Praise Yahweh. I know we all hear this word over and over. It's like a song. Trust in Yahweh. But do we really trust in Yahweh? Yeah. Praise Yahweh. Trust is to believe wholeheartedly that someone is reliable and effective. To trust Yahweh fully is to put all your faith and confidence 100% in Him. Especially when things are tough, that He will deliver us no matter what. If you will turn to Isaiah chapter 59 verse 1, found on page 567. Isaiah chapter 59 verse 1. And it reads, behold, Yahweh's hand is not shortened, that it cannot save, nor his ear heavy that it cannot hear. I would like you to read these words very carefully. And also turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, found on page 893 and 894. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. And we will begin with, and Yahweh is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. That you may be able to bear it. Sisters, our Father is very merciful and compassionate. When we think that we cannot go on no more, or cannot bear one more day, we need to trust in these two scriptures. Yahweh will always deliver his people, no matter what. He has done it time and time again. The book of Yahweh has many examples of this. Sisters, you are stronger than you think. You are. You can stand the test. You can overcome. You can overcome anything because Yahweh promised us a way of escape to save us. Do not ever sell yourself short. Do not ever sell yourself short. All we need is a positive mindset and believe in Yahweh's promises fully and trust in him. So sisters, I pose this question to you again. Do you trust in Yahweh fully? Do you have unshakable trust in Yahweh even when we are tested? And they are endless. The tests are endless. Let's turn to Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 7 to 8 on page 887. Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 7 to 8, and it reads, "Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh, and whose hope is Yahweh. For he will be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It will not be worried in the year of drought, and never cease to yield fruit." And for your notes, you can also read Psalms chapter 1, verse 3. It says the same thing. This is what we must strive to become, sisters, this tree. We cannot be the seeds that fall by the wayside, or the seeds that is planted among the thorns, or the seeds that falls on stony ground, but the seeds that fell on rich ground that grows into a strong tree that never ever waver. No matter what comes, if it have hurricanes, droughts, pestilence, bugs, no matter what, you will stand firm in his house. At this great rock of Abel, you will not fear because you trust strongly in Yahweh, his house, and his work. Sisters, gone are the days where we are like a lump of coal, breezing through life, hanging out, relaxing. Gone are those days. We cannot say we trust in Yahweh with our lips and not have the conduct to support it. We must consider our ways, our words, and our acts always. Please turn to Colossians chapter 3, verses 5, beginning in verse 5. Colossians chapter 3, beginning in verse 5. And it says, "Therefore, put to death the evil passions lurking in your members, which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passions, unholy desires, and greed, and covetousness, which are idolatry." Jump down to verse 8 now. For now you must also put away all these from your mouth: anger, rage, malice, blasphemy, and a filthy language. Going on to verse 9. Do not lie to one another, since you are putting off the old man. You are putting away the old man with his practices. Verse 9. Verse 10. And we are putting on the new man, who is being renewed in full knowledge according to the image of him who is creating him. And let us also turn to Jacob chapter 2, verse 14, found on page 958. Jacob chapter 2, verse 14. Beginning in chapter 2, verse 14. What does it profit, my brothers, if a man says he has faith, you say you believe in Yahweh, you trust in Yahweh, but does not have works, meaning keeping of the law? The faith is not able to save him. You must have the works to back up your faith. It is simple as that. Sisters, perilous times are near. We need to get ready. Are you ready? Time to stop being this lump of coal, taking up space. We need to put actions to our word. Yahweh is the one who can foretell the future. Only Yahweh, not mankind, not the gods. His prophecies are being fulfilled, and the prophecy is only for the believers, and we are the believers, sisters, the ones in the great house of Yahweh. The things that are coming upon the earth, the disease epidemics, the pestilence, the drought, and the nuclear war, is very serious and frightening. And this is the only place of protection, the great house of Yahweh. This is not the time to get overwhelmed and to give up. We need to believe and trust in the one Yahweh has sent, his house, and to believe this is the place. This is the only place. We need to increase our storehouse of knowledge, sisters, by going to the classes, coming to services, paying attention. You need to increase you need to increase your knowledge for you to stand firm in these last days. Do not think for 1 second that things are coming will be easy. It is not. It will not be easy. We often get caught up in the day-to-day grind, the ups and the downs, and it feels like more downs than up. But I say, I know what it feels like. I honestly do. No, I do also say in my mind, I should give up. Because of her. Because of them. I cannot bear it any longer. I give up. She is pushing me out. You see those people? Oh, those people. But then think about it in the long term. What are you truly giving up? You lose your protection when you leave. And your rewards from Yahweh. Because this is the only protected and safe place. And if any one of us do decide to give up and to leave, ultimately it is your choice. You chose that because you need to be grounded in these scriptures, in the book of Yahweh, in this teaching. Don't give up. Because Yahweh will not give you more than you can bear, and you are stronger than you think. Turn to Yeshua chapter 1 verse 8, found on page 178. Yeshua chapter 1 verse 8, and it reads, "This book of the law must never be missing from your mouth, and you must meditate on it day and night,
so that you may be careful to observe and do all that is written in it. For then your way will be blessed, and you will be greatly successful. Verse 9, have I not commanded you, be strong, be courageous, do not be frightened or become discouraged, for Yahweh your Father is with you wherever you go. When I'm at my lowest, I always read Revelation chapter 19 to 22 to 21. It lifts me up and renews my spirit. And it makes me remember what I am giving up if I do decide to leave. We all must choose to serve Yahweh or the gods. But what are we going to do? Are we going to trust Yahweh, or are we going to be the lump of coal? I have made my choice, and I choose to trust Yahweh. And no one will ever remove me from the house of Yahweh. I chose this great rock of Abel. So sisters, make your choice. Choose the great rock of Abel. Let it be your strength. Let the book of Yahweh renew your spirits when you are down. And with this, I'd like to turn it over to the next teacher.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. In Matthew chapter 9, verse 12, the Pharisees, Sadducees, and Essenes, Herodians taunted Yeshua and said, why are you hanging out with these nobodies? Why are you hanging out with these sinners? These people who aren't that smart, a bunch of okies. And Yeshua said, and this is what they had to figure out, Yeshua said, they who are well have no need of a physician, only those who are sick. So my message today is that for those who are severely tested, I want to speak to you. But those who aren't tested, who are being a test to others, this may not be for you, so you may want to close your ears, okay? Because you're well. You're doing great. But we tend to find ourselves in situations where we're tested severely, don't we? And then it starts to creep up on us to doubt and want to head out the door. And I've been through so many situations where I've seen close people to me go out the door. And my biggest mistake was begging them to stay. I was like a little child and my mommy was leaving me for the first day of school. I was like, don't go, don't go. And that heartache is there. It is. It's a true fact. But the words I failed to say was face it. Face your tests. May I please have my picture? How true is that? Be brave even if you're not. Pretend to be. When you get that test, you may bet this little fish. But put on that shark fin and pretend you can get through this test. I don't care. Face it. The opposite of brave is to feel scared, right? And we may think, oh, we're giving it up because, we had enough. No, whatever. No, you're actually afraid. You're scared. You're feeling weak. You don't want to do it anymore because I'm afraid of the outcome. Right? But our tests, it's not the tests where we know we did wrong, right? A lot of time our test is we didn't do it, but we got blamed for it. We're constantly being bothered. we're mistreated, we're asking for something and it's taking us forever, right? We feel like we've been forgotten, we've been pushed aside, we've been waiting for a long time, we're left alone doing a job. These are the type of tests that Yahweh is allowing us to go through. But that armor, right, that shark fin we put on because we're going to pretend we can get through this thing, it's our laws. It's Yahweh's laws. It's Yahweh's laws and the facts of our works, that we stayed firm, that we humbled ourselves to do what is right. That is our armor. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 26, it says, "Do not fear them. Do not fear these tests. For there is nothing covered that would not be revealed, or hidden that would not be known." So whatever you're going through, show Yahweh you're going to go through it. Because it's not hidden. Yahweh sees it. Right? Yahweh sees it. And he's telling Satan, like the way he told about Job, go ahead, do what you want to do. Look at my servant. Look at my servant. Still swimming through the ocean, right? What I tell you in the dark, speak out in the daylight. And what you hear in the ear, preach upon the housetop. And do not fear those who can kill the body, but are not able to kill the spirit. But rather, fear him. Fear Yahweh. Fear the fact that when you break his laws, Satan won. He can't help you there. Fear that. Who is able to destroy both spirit and body in Gehenna? You should fear Yahweh. Because his laws is your strength. And when you neglect his laws, you're showing him, forget it, Yahweh. I do want to go out the door, right? In Yochanan chapter 8, verses 29. And this is what we always must keep in mind so that we don't fail our tests. These scriptures is entitled, Yeshua always doing the things that pleased Yahweh. Verse 29 says, and he who sent me is with me. That's what Yeshua said. The Father has not left me alone. For I always do those things that please him. No, we're not pleasing man. We are pleasing Yahweh. Are we keeping his laws? When we're put in a situation, are we keeping his laws? Because that is fact in Yahweh's courts. That's what proves that you are the righteous one. That you are doing what is right in Yahweh's eyes. In every situation you're put in. In 1 Yochanan 4:18. 1 Yochanan 4:18. And this is what keeps us going. This is what keeps us going. 1 Yochanan 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. The fear of having to take this test. This love. For fear has torment. Ooh, not a great feeling. He who fears is not made perfect in love. Perfect is Yahweh's laws. And the love here actually, let me define to you, is love for your sisters. Is that not true? Because when you love your sisters, you're not going to leave. When you love your sisters, you're not going to quit. You're going to stay firm because you know your sister needs you. You know that Yahweh needs you. That is the true love. And that what casts out the fear. I don't want to go through this test, but you know what? I'm going to go through it because I need to stand up for my sister. Because I need to do what is right to help my sister. That right there is true love. So what would Yahweh want you to do? if you're thinking about pleasing Yahweh, would he want you to leave or would he want you to stay? He put a lot of effort into bringing you here, didn't he? Only one of you from your whole family came here, right? He put a lot of effort into you because you're special to him. He knew you had the strength to overcome and go through your tests. So ask yourself, when you are faced with the test, what is this test trying to teach me that when I overcome this test, I may testify what I ought to do or not to do to be in unity with Yahweh, because I want to represent Yahweh well. I want that when they see me, they see Yahweh. May I please have my picture again? When there's one fish swimming in the sea, Satan can take it and destroy it. But fish, they're smart. They travel together as a school, don't they? So it makes it harder for Satan to take. But when this school of fish, when they're dressed like sharks, and they're saying, no, we're going to go through this. Who will mess with that pack of sharks? Nobody, right? Be brave and show Yahweh you can take any test Satan throws at you. Yes, it's Satan. She is working hard. What we are going through, if we don't quit, will build us to be greater, stronger leaders. And Yahweh needs to know that we are not quitters, no matter what. And you know what? Face it, we ain't quitters. We're not quitters. Now today, Pastor, he was able to release an article, and it says, Yisrayl Hawkins, House of Yahweh, which is the House of Yahweh, links common health concerns to biblical laws being broken. And I want to get on a more serious note here, because we know that the world is suffering. We know it. If we're suffering, the world is 1,000 times worse. In Zechariah 5, verse 9, which a wonderful deaconess read today, it's on page 719. I'd like to reiterate that. Page 719, Zechariah 5, verse 9. It says, Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, 2 women, the last 2 eras of the house of Yahweh, sent with commandments. The Spirit of Yahweh came to overshadow, give that protection to them. And they were covered with the covering of the saint. And they exalted, magnified, and extolled the ephah, the standard of perfection sent by Yahweh's laws, separating the way of the world from the way of Yahweh. These were the 2 houses, Jacob and Yisrael, the last 2 lights on the lampstand. And they started that work up again. Because they preached Yahweh's laws, they separated evil from righteousness, showing the way of righteousness. And the Spirit of Yahweh, yes, it overspread the saints. It overspread those who were in the house of Yahweh. It overshadowed them and it protected them not because they overcame obstacles, but because they practiced. Let me say that word again. Because they practiced righteousness, as spoken of in 1 Yahweh 3, verse 7 through 8. So if you practice righteousness, keep it up. Keep it up. With this, I'd like to turn over to our next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom again. Great saints of Yahweh, please be seated. Now, please, with all the speakers so far, we have been comforted that this is Yahweh's great house. Do you believe that, great saints of Yahweh? Are you comforted to make up your mind that this is where you want to be? Praise Yahweh. Now, I want to tell you one thing. As each speaker spoke, they were trying to bring across to us the importance of realizing that this is Yahweh's house, and Yahweh is a father and he's a power, and we have to be ready to serve him and let the world know this is what we want to do. We are choosing to serve Great Father Yahweh. Do you agree? Now, there's a psalm I want to share with us. And I sometimes say to myself, if Darwin had read Psalm 139, he talks about evolution and saying that we evolved. I'd like you to get this Psalm 139, and we want to look at verses 13 to 18. We will stay right there. Now, the great last day's witness, he has been bringing out some very tasty food. Have you noticed lately? Have you been tasting it? He's been talking about the original sons of Yahweh. And then he said to us recently that we were preordained with Messiah. Did you remember him saying that? A couple of Sabbaths ago he said we were preordained with Messiah. Preordained means like a long time before. Something fixed. Something decided upon in advance. Preordained. Some of us preordained. We preordained fixed. Decided upon a long time ago in advance. Look at for me, please, Psalm 139. Let's look at 16. 16, can you see? It says, verse 16. It says, your eyes, is that correct? Your eyes saw. We're talking about that power who is Yahweh. Your eyes saw our unformed substance. Your eyes, Yahweh's eyes saw us a long time ago in advance. Our unformed substance. Your grandmother, your grandfather, far away, your great-grand, your unformed substance. You were not formed yet, and Yahweh saw us. Our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Yahweh saw us then. Adam and Eve, and before that, we were there in his plan. Do you see it, great house of Yahweh? His eyes saw our unformed substance. And in his books, and in your book, and in his books, every day ordained for us was written. Every single day. Okay, I was born in 1934. I was born. How many days has Yahweh written about me? I brought a little book. I was born in 1934. So and I'm 82 years old. If you take my 82 and you multiply it by 365, how many days is that? Tikva, you have your calculator. How many days that Yahweh is writing for each of us, knowing us in advance? Huh? Okay, everybody tell me. How old are you? Don't just say it loud. Okay, great. When were you born? Just say it. Multiplied by 365. How many days is that? Father is writing about you. And in your book, every day ordained for us was written. Does he care about you? Does he care about us? May I have my video, please? You see? Psalm 139. You formed us in the womb. You formed us in the womb. Not just me. Did we all have mothers? Were we all in the womb? Yes, you created us in the womb. Every day ordained for us was written. Look at it. Can you see it? Baby Toby Israel. Every day ordained for each one of us, Yahweh saw, and he knew our unformed substance. Microorganisms that he gave. Do you see it, sisters? Every day ordained for us. And when the great overseer used the word ordained, I thought microorganisms set up long before to take care of it, take care of us. Look at it. Can you see the unformed substance? And if Darwin had seen this, maybe he would not want to say that we evolved. You see it? In the mother's womb. We will praise you, for we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We will praise you, for we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and we know very well. Do you see it, great house of Yahweh? Marvelous are his works, and we know very well. Your eyes saw our frames. Each one of us. And if, oh, how great, how precious, how valuable your thoughts are to us, Yahweh. How great, vast is the sum of them. If we could count them, look at it, every day, if we could count them, they'll be more numerous than the grains of sand. Could we pause our video for a minute, please? Could we pause for a minute, please? Oh, how precious are your thoughts to us, great Yahweh. How great, vast are the sum of them. If we could count them, they will be more numerous than the grains of sand. Can you count those? Are you sure? It's just a bag. Okay, you can't count those. They would be more numerous than the grains of sand. Can you count this one then, at least? You still can't count this one? So does Father care about you? How precious, great are your thoughts to us, great Yahweh? How many days of your life he's thinking about you? What you will wear? Where will he be born? In Lexicon? Odessa, where? Tell me. What will his mother name be? Maggie May. What will his father's name be? Brothers, sisters? Each one of us. Okay, then you can count this one, Charlie. This little one. This little one. How great. Vast are the sum of them, is the sum of them. If we could count them, 18, if we could count them, they would be more numerous than the grains of sand, not even the small one. When we awake, we are still with you. Could we resume the video, please? Our frames were not hidden from you, it says. Psalms 139, our frames were not hidden from you. My frame, your frame, our frames were not hidden from great Father Yahweh when we were being formed in secret in the womb, skillfully, did you see it? Woven together in the depths of the earth. How can they say we evolved? Our frames were not hidden from you when we were formed in secret in the womb, skillfully, do you see it? Woven together in the depths of the earth. So, great house of Yahweh, do you agree that we have a mighty power? Do you agree that the mighty power is our Father? And if He is our Father, then we are His children. And He formed us. So do you agree, great house of Yahweh? Praise house of Yahweh and praise Yahweh. And this is where we want to stay and make our home a sure place in the house of great Father Yahweh. But I turn over to the last speaker. Praise Yahweh.
Shalom, you may be seated. Okay, we can get started right away here, and then we can let you go eat. I know everybody's getting ready for lunch. And the title of my speech this morning is, Hello, do you know you're going the wrong way? Okay. How many of you have ever gone into any kind of business and it says entrance only, and there's a bunch of people coming out the door, and you're thinking, can you read the sign? How many of you have ever been coming out and it says exit only, and there's people coming in and you've got all your heavy bags and you're trying to maneuver around them because they didn't read the sign? I got one better. You're driving down the road in your car, and it's a one-way, and lo and behold, there's somebody going the opposite way, coming right toward you. And you say, hey, do you know you're going the wrong way? Now, here comes the policeman. Pulls the car over. Yeah? Ma'am, did you know you're going the wrong way? No. Ma'am, where are you going? It's none of your business. Hang on just a second. Dispatch, this is Sergeant so-and-so, highway such and such. Got a person leaving Abel, going the wrong way on a one-way street, pulled her over. She's asked her where she was going. She said, it's none of my business. Now, what would you do? What would you do if you were Sergeant so-and-so? What would you do if you were the person on the other end of that dispatch? I want you to think about it, because sometimes, without realizing it, we could be supporting someone who's making a very wrong choice. I'd like to read Genesis 28:17, and it says, and he was afraid. This is Genesis 28:17. And he was afraid and said, how wonderful is this place. This is none other than the house of Yahweh, the place where Yahweh dwells. And this is the gate, or the entrance to the kingdom of heaven. So we've established now, through Scripture, what is the house of Yahweh? Is it the exit or is it the entrance? Say it loud, I can't hear you. Okay, so if someone's going out the entrance, would they be going the wrong way? I can't hear you. I just want to be sure, because we need to establish facts here, because we need to make sure that we know what and who we support in Great Father's house, because the administration is sitting right here in front of me. And soon all judgment will be handed over to you, saints of Yahweh. To you. Please put up my first slide. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about coming out, because Moshe was told, go and get those people and bring them in or out. Bring them out of the world. Genesis 7:1. Noah was told by Yahweh to come in or out. tricked you. In the ark, right? He was told, do all these instructions and come where? So see, what I'm trying to do is teach you the difference between in, out, entrance, exit, right, and wrong choices. It's important, and we'll get to that. Abraham was told, come on out from among your kindred. So he was told to come in or out? Out. Yisrayl Hawkins, Revelation 18:4. What is he prophesied to tell us to do? Come in or out? You got it. Revelation 18:4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, so that you do not partake in her sins, so that you do not receive of her plagues. So Yisrayl Hawkins is part of this bringing out. Now, for your other references with coming out, you've got Jeremiah 51:45. My people, get out of her midst. Let each man deliver his own life from the judgment of Yahweh. Isaiah 26:20 and 21. Come, my people, enter into the sanctuary, and I will shut the doors around you. I will hide you, as it were, for a little moment until the indignation has passed over. For behold, Yahweh comes out of his place to judge the inhabitants of the earth. For their iniquity, their sin, the earth will also disclose her blood and will no more cover her slain. So we're told to come out of this world and enter into this sanctuary, right? Okay. Now, I'd like to read, well, first of all, I want to bring your mind to the Garden of Eden. Now, everybody knows this story. The Christians think of it as a cute little story where you've got Adam and Eve, you've got Cain and Abel, and Adam and Eve were actually driven out of the garden, it says, right? Let's read that. Genesis 3. We're going to read Genesis 3, and I want to go to verse 22. And Genesis 3:22, and it says, Then Yahweh said, Behold, the man has become like a god. He's begun to know righteousness and evil, and now he must not be allowed to put his hand also and take of the tree of life, which means he disqualified himself for something there, right? Therefore, Yahweh sent him out. Now, one might say, Abel barred Adam and Eve. That was so cruel. That was his parents. But did Abel bar Adam and Eve? No. Because, see, Adam and Eve were given instructions to follow. And they were told to not partake of a certain thing and to partake in another thing. So was it Abel who actually blocked their opportunity to the kingdom, or did Adam and Eve make choices that determined their future? Great saints of Yahweh, all judgment and authority is about to be given to those of you sitting in this room right here. The students of the greatest teacher in the world, Yisrayl Abel Hawkins. Did Adam and Eve, were they treated unfairly or unjust? I say it so that we can hear you. Let the courts of heaven hear. Great job. I've got another slide to share with you some Book of Israel quotes, because no one can say it better than Yisrayl Abel. And it's sometimes we have to hear it from, I have to hear it from him. Officer, I want him to tell me. So let's hear what he has to say. The second book of Israel, chapter 42, verses 49 through 51, and I'm reading excerpts here, and it says, We are not of those who draw back to perdition or destruction. We, the ones who make it, who live by the faith, are not the ones who draw back into this perdition. Luke 9:62. And Yeshua said to him, No man who puts his hand to the plow then looks back. Well, what's he talking about? He's talking about a man or a woman, who is drawn to the work of Yahweh and actually becomes part of the work. He sees this great jewel and he's willing to sell all to get it. Then that one starts pulling back, Pastor says. Is he talking about breaking some kind of reins around your neck or drawing back into another field of work or something? No. Pastor says, look at the judgment. Look, future rulers. Look at the law. Okay, so I want to pause here for a minute because I want to kind of give a little analogy here. You're plowing a field, you're doing a work, and you decide for whatever reason it is, you're just going to leave your plow sitting in the middle of the field, and you're going to say to someone, hey, I'm not going to be there to plow today. I left my plow in the middle of the field, but leave it there and hold my place. I'll be back. And you go. So the ones that are left plowing the field, they have to now plow your field and their field. But your plow is in their way because it's sitting right where you left it, in the middle of the field. But hold my place, don't touch my stuff, because I'll be back. So finally, after you've gone around it, you just say, we've got to move the plow because we've got to get this work done. We've got to keep pushing forward. Now, was that a wrong or a right choice? Because you got to keep the work going. Are the people that are still waiting to be called out, are they going to wait until we get back and decide to grab that plow again and start working it? Is the food in the field going to just, all of a sudden start popping out of the ground even though our plow's just sitting there idle with nobody pulling it? Yes or no? Have we let down on our own job when we leave that plow sitting there? And then who made the decision to leave that plow? Was it the other people that are working, that are plowing next to you, or was it the one that actually left that plow? I'm sorry? This is important. Now we're going to go to the second book of Israel, chapter 31. The second book of Israel is wonderful, by the way. Chapter 31, verse 111. And Pastor says, a lot of people put their hand to the plow and then they draw back because the work of Yahweh doesn't mean anything to them. What are you proving to Yahweh when you do that? Did you ever think about that? The fourth book of Israel, the reverence of Yahweh, number 16, verse 58. Once a person is baptized, Satan immediately tries to remove the seed of the kingdom of heaven from them. I've seen people go through this, Pastor says. I've seen it quite a few times, in fact. People who would come, be baptized because Spirit Holy was drawing them, but then as soon as Satan goes to work on them, and she does, they would run. I underlined and bolded this. This proves that they are not fit for the kingdom of Yahweh. As Joshua said, he says, once you set your hand to the plow and look back, you are no longer fit. Sometimes, without realizing it, we might be the police officer that would say, it's okay, it's all right that you're going the wrong way. We'll see you when you come back. Or we would lend support. The support, compassion, and love that we should lend is upholding and teaching Yahweh's laws to everyone that will listen. In that way, by doing that, that person will have the opportunity to stop their car and say, I'm going the wrong way. I'm going the wrong way. No, it's not everybody else that's going the right way. You're the one with the problem. You are going the wrong way. Yahshua, who gives us our jobs. He's the one that gives us our positions in this great work. He also inspires us in these jobs and in our positions. When we're given a job by Yahshua, he begins to judge us in the performance of that job. Tests and situations that were foreordained to see what kind of decisions that we were going to make. All foreordained, as the great head judge before me said. All, Yahweh knew all before we were formed. Now, do you remember Elisha's faithful servant? Do you remember when Yana died and his mother called for help? And do you remember that faithful servant that Elisha said, you take my staff and you go. If someone shaloms you, you do not shalom them, you go. Do not stop and shalom anyone, you go. And you lay that staff and you do your work. And that young man was resurrected from the dead. Some might say, did you see her? She was just running by. She didn't even say shalom. A specific instruction. What do you think might have occurred to Yana had that servant stopped and said, hey, what's going on? Where are you going? Hey, you're just going to bring this staff over to do this thing. Elisha told me to go up on in there and do this thing. What do you think might have been the outcome of Yana had he not followed that specific and exact instruction? Now, it doesn't mean just because he was faithful at that moment, he was a faithful servant, it doesn't mean that you're always going to remain a faithful servant. Because you read about a page later, and that same servant, remember when the man was healed? And it was told, no, I don't want any of these gifts that you're offering me, remember? And then the thought came into the same servant's mind, and he ran after the guy, and he's like, hey, my ruler changed his mind. He wants this, and he wants that, and could you give me a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And remember, he went and he hid it? And then remember when it was asked of him, where have you been? He lied. Maybe he said it was none of their business. And remember what the judgment was? The same sickness and thing that was upon that person that was healed was given to that servant who turned. It is so important that we realize that this is the greatest place in the entire world. I know this was kind of a serious speech, and you know, we're in serious times. And I went digging in my yard. It's okay, it's not David Toman yet. And I got this dirt from the grounds of the house of Yahweh. Now, when you start losing Spirit Holy because you've made some wrong decisions and you're going the wrong way, you might see this as just dirt. But do you know what I look at when I see this? I see holy ground. I see holy ground. I hope you see holy ground too, sisters. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. And may we never, ever, ever go down that one-way street the wrong way. Praise Yahweh.